back at the Battle of Blenheim, 1704. This is going to be part 2 of my playthrough of this battle. We have completed the second turn, the 12:40 to 1 o'clock turn. We're going to start the 1 o'clock hour here. If you watched the last video, you knew that I was trying to fumble my way through the rules to try and play the game. I'm getting a better handle on it. There's still stuff that's like not intuitive, and also is not intuitive to look up in the rule book. And like the information is there, it's just sometimes hard to find what section it's under. So I do think that like the rules are not a great reference, and I would probably add some more repetition in the rules of various rules around routing and retreating in various sections. It's not that it's not clear, it's just not always where I think it's supposed to be, and I have to go hunting for it. So we're going to be starting this third turn of the game with the Allied right coming down through these woods. And there's probably going to be an attack, if I can roll well enough, for Fink's brigade, which is all of these guys, to attack these dismounted dragoons under Fontbossard. Here, they're going to get flanked probably on both ends. They tried to change orders last turn into dress ranks to fall back, and they failed. And I don't have the space to commit. Well, so these guys are actually in the full back row. So these guys are in the reserve. And so I guess, could I have committed them? I could have tried to commit them to the support line here if I wanted to. No, there's not enough room. I've got 3 brigades across. So we've got the front line, we've got the support line, and we've got the reserve line. And there's only room for 3 brigades in each line, despite the fact that this is quite a wide operating area, and we're trying to protect the Lutzingen township here to prevent the flank from being rolled up this way. There's not a lot of French defenders along here. The Allies have moved up their artillery mostly across the line while the French continue to fire. We have some artillery hits kind of in these general areas. The actual, over here on the Allied left, French right, we actually got an artillery effective hit, which is the best that you can do. This unit's not going to be able to move out of that hex this turn. So that was a pretty good shot from this artillery. What I'm trying to do is drive a wedge between these two brigades. These dismounted dragoons over here moved up to block the Austrians crossing. So in the Allied wing command phase, I actually used Marlborough, the army commander, to commit another brigade from support to the front. And we've slotted in Ferguson here, who's going to take his spot between the Austrians and Rowe. Rowe has actually made it across the Nebel, and they're going to slowly move in to try and put some pressure on the town of Blenheim. We want Rowe to come in just beside him and cause some damage in this flank here. I did move Saint-Segond, which is this brigade here. They are Italians in WA. Not Verdenberg. I wonder where they're from. Anyway, some Italians and some other units. This is Saint-Segond's infantry. They were committed forward by the French wing commander, Clérambault. So they are going to have to get into compliance when they activate, and that is going to involve moving through this artillery and taking spots here to protect these flanks. So we're going to start to see some more action over on the Blenheim flank this turn. In the center, this is where a lot of the action has been happening. So we have had Prince Eugen and the Austrian cavalry trying to punch through here on the French left center. And it's been very tough going for the Austrians and the Prussians. Bunch of unit casualties. We caused one of our own here on the French. A lot of disordered cavalry in here. The advantage that the French have right now is that their cavalry is better. They were behind this stream, and there's a lot of them in a very narrow frontage. So what I have done this turn with Prince Eugen is I have yet to roll for it. It's the last thing I need to do in the wing commander phase. What I want to do, now that there's this gap here on the right side, I want to bring... who is that? This is Kusani. I want to bring Kusani's Austrian cavalry up and slot them in on the front line. I have to make a roll to see if I can commit them to the front. But I should be able to. Prince Eugen's pretty good in terms of his leadership rating. So we're going to hopefully bring these guys up and threaten the flank here to try and tie things up. We had a pretty disastrous cavalry charge last turn with Natsmer. Tried to come in here, did an elimination, but the French counterattacked and drove them back. Eliminations on both sides. Thankfully, both brigades passed their morale check. And then here in the center, the Dutch have made it across. They've pushed the French cavalry back. This is all French cavalry in here, and when they get attacked by infantry, they just retreat. So what I'm trying to do now is a fairly complex maneuver where I'm going to pull part of the Dutch line back into dress ranks. That will allow them to disengage with the enemy. That will then allow me on the next turn to do a passage of lines, I think is what it's called, a swap. So I can bring some of this Hessian cavalry forward across the river in front of the Dutch infantry. We can do some cavalry charges against this kind of worn down French center, and that will hopefully clear the path for more infantry. So it's going to take some time, and this game system, I think of all the things that it is doing, it definitely gives you the feel of what it would be like to command rigid lines of immobile troops who have no initiative for their orders. It is mostly managing traffic jams. The combat seems to be mostly ancillary to sort of the strategy of getting your troops where you need them to be most effective. And then making any sort of change to your lines is an extremely laborious process. And so you really do feel the pre-planning and the command necessities of this era of warfare. So in that, it is achieving its goals, its design goals. In terms of how fun that is to play, get back to me once I'm done with a couple more turns. But I am going to try to move the Dutch back, bring the cavalry forward, pass through them. I'm going to have to back up and stack so that there's spaces for the cavalry to move through, because you're not allowed to, I don't think you're allowed to move through units. I think cavalry might be able to. I got to check that. So it's going to be kind of a complex maneuver to switch their positions here on the display. We're going to want... what we want Holstein Beck to move back to the support line to recover, and we want to bring Viller or Erbach through up this direction. So that's the plan for this turn. We'll see where we get to when I show you what's happened next. Hopefully we're going to get a little bit more movement along the line with the mass of infantry coming down here on the French right. Well, my plan to kind of like rescue this failed cavalry charge is not going well. I tried to get Kusani to take the a frontline slot in this general area. I needed to roll a 7 or less. I rolled a 9, so that's not going to happen this turn. We're going to try and hang on with Durlac and Natsmer this turn, but the French really do have the initiative here, and if they wanted to, they could make an attack. Now, all these units are disordered, so they're going to have to go to dress ranks and refresh, but this brigade here, actually they're going to go to dress ranks too because they're not in compliance. This brigade needs to be to the right side of Vivian, and this guy, thanks to his advance, is no longer that way. So we're going to have to go to dress ranks in order to get back into compliance. So there's a little bit of a breathing room here for the Allies. We're going to want to go to dress ranks with Natsmer to recover. There's just going to be a lot of cavalry recovery here until I can get Kusani up into its appropriate spot. We're about to see a cool use of one of the game's features, and that is the way that battalion guns are integrated into each of the brigades. So we had D'Urlaville here under charge orders, the British going first. They've moved up. They've forced back some of this cavalry, but unfortunately, this unit here on the end, this is Stokrad, he unfortunately has to attack here because we had this matchup, and this two units can't attack one if they can attack someone else. So D'Urlaville is going to attack here into Montleverrier, the Navarre battalion of 1 of 3. So these are French Navarrese. They have got a battalion gun on their unit. So when you attack or are attacked, these 4-pound battalion guns, you can use them as an artillery shot. And what you do is you take the counter, and they're once per game use. So once you've used them, they're gone. But at last turn, I actually moved this battalion over to cover the space between the town and the gendarme cavalry on that wing boundary. So you turn it over and you stick it on the unit you're firing at. They only have a range of 1, so you can only do it adjacent, but that counts as an artillery hit automatically against the attacking battalion or the battalion you're attacking. So that's going to cause severe penalties here, and I suspect that this brigade is not going to like what's about to happen to it. So it's an infantry attack, and this is only one of the few that we've had given just the disposition of forces in this game. So if we look at the combat value here, we've got a 4, and we've got a 2 here on that unit. So that's already starting at the -2 column. Then we've also got an artillery hit from those battalion guns. So that's going to be another -1. So we're at -3, which is the worst possible table you can be at. But I was forced to attack because I'm under charge orders and I had to attack that unit. So infantry versus infantry, we want to roll low here, hopefully. And then are there any open flanks? Yes, we both have open flanks, and neither of the units has an underlying combat value. So we would get a little bit back if we had an extra long line. Mostly the British have the underline. Some of the Dutch do as well, and the Danes. But that's sort of a Northern European sort of formation doctrine that's reflected in this game. Unfortunately, this is what is this? This is a French unit versus a Hessian. So they don't have that. And Yeah, here we go. So, -3. Allies rolled. Ooh, they rolled a 0. That's the best possible result they could have rolled, given how outnumbered this is, which is actually quite amazing. So that is going to be a DR. The defender is going to retreat 1 hex, and the attacker must advance if the hex is unoccupied. So that was not what I expected. Okay, great. So this artillery hit's going to stay there for the turn. That's going to interdict any other movement through that hex. This guy has to retreat 1 hex. And this brigade, de Laville, has to advance to there. So an unexpected punch through there around the town of Blenheim, and that's going to start to make the cordon around the west, well, I guess it's the north side of the town. What direction? No, the west side of the town, as the Allies continue to push forward with their infantry advance. Quick look at the end of the 120, the 1 to 120 turn. We're still trying to close in on this flank into an attack with Fink's Prussians against these Dragoons. The French keep falling back. They could fall back one more line this turn. That brigade is in dress ranks. So if the French go first, no, actually, sorry, because they're in dress ranks, they're not going to get a chance to respond. So these guys will go first. They'll try and change to charge, make the attack. The cavalry regroup in full effect here. We're going to try and get Prince Eugen again this turn to bring up a new brigade here to the front. Nothing going on here. I didn't realize that these Danish units here are all cavalry, so they have no chance to attack Oberglau here. They would not be able to do it. And I decided on this turn to keep Palant in march, just to move them up to the front here and wait and see what happens on their left flank. De Laville made some attacks to good effect, push back some of these cavalry. The cavalry managed to regroup and get back into a line, but de Laville is in a good spot to just keep kind of bullying them back this direction. And that's going to cause massive problems for the French. The French are probably going to have to try and do a passage of lines or a relieve in place to get some infantry up forward to bail these guys out, because if they don't, the infantry is just going to push these guys all the way back and then surround Blenheim. The British have crossed in some parts. They have moved up here. This is Ferguson taking their spot. We showed you that. We did finally get Wilkie's brigade to attack across the Nebel, and it was actually quite successful. They routed one of Hutfoy's dragoons here, that as he was fleeing went through Saint-Sagon's Italians. I did notice that I made a mistake with Saint-Sagon. If you look at this, you can see the Blenheim strongpoint wing has only room for 3 brigades. So my previous maneuver, while sound in terms of getting the line fixed, I could not put Saint-Sagon's infantry up into the front. There was no room for them as a brigade. So they have to sit here, and that routing unit actually messed up these Italians and took away their initial volley, which is not good. And Wilkie's just going to keep trying to push forward. These dragoons, now that he's crossed the Nebel, are much more vulnerable than they were in the first attack, and I rolled really well with the Allies on those attacks. So we're going to keep pushing this flank as much as possible. We're going to have Ferguson cross the Nebel this next turn, hopefully in a charge, because we can drop these battalion guns. Assuming these guys don't rout, I'm probably going to have Wilkie go first, and then we'll see where we get with the Brits. And then we want to charge here against Greater. That's going to be a bloodbath. But we do have some infantry. We have St. Paul's Hanoverians here, who I've moved over. So if one of these brigades kind of breaks and routes, we can fill them into the front. And that's kind of a look at all the action that's happening. Some more complicated maneuvers coming on this turn. We'll see if we can make the die rolls. It's pretty tough to get your brigades swapped in line, as I was saying. So that's where we are. The assault on Blenheim proper has begun here in the at the 1:20 p.m. turn. We have Rose Brigade, these British units, at the urging of Marlborough, make an attack on the village. Now, this should have gone extremely badly. You're attacking sort of positions that can't be outflanked. The denser kind of village environment is a really good advantage for the defenders. And my whole goal here was to just kind of soften this up, because I'm going to bring in Ferguson next turn, hopefully this way. You actually notice also that Rowe, from the artillery phase, a couple of Rowe's battalions could not advance on the attack because they're under artillery effective fire. So the French artillery here slowing down this attack. So it should have been a complete disaster for the Brits, but I was just trying to get some damage in on the infantry to soften it up a little bit. And then I proceeded to roll on all 3 of my attacks this 0, 2, and 0. Again, low numbers are what you want in this system. And so the Brits roll about as well as you could possibly roll on D10s 3 times in a row. It's just absolutely insane. And so that resulted in some hits here to the French battalions. Graders Brigade. We actually did eliminate a unit here that routed. If I back up the camera a little bit, you can see that routing unit actually routed through the Languedoc Battalion from Argello. That's problematic in and of itself. The British have advanced into sort of the outskirts of the village. Then we also had an exchange of battalion gunfire here, so yeah, that's why these artillery hit markers are there. We had Montleverrier, the Navarrese French. They took a couple of hits. So we've got a lot of units here that are on the verge of breaking French defenders. And against all odds, the British have just unleashed a salvo on the village of Blenheim. So this could end up being a very short battle if it continues this way with the Allied dice. And because Grader lost a unit here, we have to do a morale check. Grader's brigade morale is 5. They've lost a unit here, so we need a 4 or less on the dice. This could be a collapse immediately for the French. They rolled a 3. They are okay. The rest of the battalions in Grader's brigade here are going to stand, at least for the time being, but we are going to have to figure out a way to assist them, probably moving up Argello when they activate into a defensive position there. Here we are at 2 p.m., and it was very much a turn where the French pounced on the Allies. They managed to hold off the British attack on Blenheim. It's getting pretty dicey in here. They're probably not going to be able to hold these front brigades much longer. We're going to try and move some up to support possibly Argello. What I like about this design is that it incentivizes you to do what the French historically did, which is just pour battalions into the town to try and hold it. It's the best defensive option they have here as this flank starts to push back this way. Pushing the cavalry back a little further here in the center. Unfortunately, we didn't get charge orders with Villers cavalry here. I wanted to do a cavalry charge because they have the advantage against these SP, I guess these are Spanish cavalry here in the center. And if we can push them back, then we can bring Holstein-Beck's infantry back across and do some damage, or even slot them in over here. Where the real action was this turn was a just devastating cavalry charge from von Weichel's Bavarian cavalry. First of all, just drove back the Austrian line severely. As you can see, they've been pushed back beyond, most of them beyond the reaches of this creek. And then they got a bunch of followed up continued attacks. It was this unit here, the von Weichel Battalion 1, just got a bunch of follow up attacks in here, routed a whole bunch of units. We actually eliminated Natzmer's cavalry before they could even do anything. That wasn't all. I made an attack with the Danes down here against Lutzingen, and I was repulsed. I didn't come out too badly from that. Now that the Allied artillery is in range, we're going to be able to put some pressure on here. Unfortunately, Anhalt de Sau was killed in the initial assault on the town. So that's another good leader who's been removed from his wing and replaced by Scholten, who's an Italian, I believe. So this is not going well, or possibly Hungarian, not going well for the leadership stakes. And because this game system is all about the leadership, that is going to put a severe strain on the Allied right flank. So it's going to be really up to the center and left to try and win the day for Marlborough. And to move Kaunitz's brigade and turn them about face, because one of the rules in this game is that if you pass the front line of the sector next to you, you can then attack across the barrier as a flank attack. And I'm worried that the French cavalry are going to try and do that, because the front line of the Allies is here, and von Weichel had moved across, so he was fully beyond the front line and the support line. So I had to turn these guys around to prevent that from happening, to guard that flank. So yeah, I think it could go either way still. And we've got, what is that, 3, 6, 9, 12 turns, so a lot can happen between now and then, but I thought this is a pretty interesting turn for the French. Reached the end of the 2 p.m. hour, so we're going to be starting 3 p.m. on the next turn, about halfway through the scenario. The Allies have forced, with their infantry here, a bulge into the French line. As you can see, they're starting to cut on this flank as well, cut the village off, which is what happened historically. They managed to surround Blenheim with all the French brigades in there, and the French just surrendered. So battle playing out along historical lines, Allies have done a really good job. This infantry center here has really just pushed the French cavalry back. And once they found some space, once we were able to generate some space in here, we were able to bring up some other cavalry. And that's what we're going to try and do here. We're going to try and disengage with Pallant's Dutch, move back, and then do what's it called, a relief in place, and have this cavalry from the second line swap places and come in and charge here. We've done a lot of casualties in these two sectors. All of the French brigades that have either failed morale tests or been eliminated. Don't mind these. These are mounted dragoons I didn't use. But as you see, 5 French and Bavarian brigades, and we'll talk about Fink and what happened to him there. It was pretty much disastrous for the Allied right flank, but managed to eliminate a lot of the resistance in here, and we're going to slowly keep closing this. The French right flank is in severe distress. They've only got 1 brigade in each line. I've been trying. Their leadership is so bad that I haven't been able to kind of like fill in the gaps forward because their leaders are junk. So it's been problematic. Down over here, the Danes are engaged in a firefight across the line in Lutzingen, and it's pretty crowded in there. And Fink's brigade, who you see is no longer on the map, made a final attack here in the woods and they rolled horribly and were pushed off. So we're bringing up these Danes, these 3 Danish infantry battalions to just try and hold this flank. This flank is a little weak for the Allies. There's only 3 brigades. They've lost the leader on this flank. So what I'm thinking I'm going to have to do, I have a choice this next turn, and this is kind of where the systems command structure comes into play. Eugen can either move to the front to try and get these guys into charge, so we can charge the Bavarian cavalry in this sector, or he can send one of these brigades here into the reserve on the right flank with cavalry. That will just keep the wing safe in case stuff starts to go wrong. But as you see, lots of routes in here, and starting to crumble a little bit. What else do I have to say? Oh, the other thing I should say is that in Ferguson's brigade here, his assault succeeded in kind of breaking through the French right flank. The assault on the city put on more step losses there to Argello's brigade. Unfortunately, Cutts, the commander of that British assault, lost his life in the attack. So Lumley is now in charge of the Allied left, and that's not great because he's a worse leader. So it's going to be harder to order these guys and get them to do what I want them to do. So we've got a bunch of challenges in the next hour ahead for the Allies to get where they want to be, but I'm pretty pleased with the progress they've made, and they just need to keep pushing here. They still got some fresh brigades. Seckendorf is in here. We still got the ability to attack. I may retire these guys and bring St. Paul's brigade, these Hanoverians, across and give the Hessians a break. But, still some battalions in here with their initial volley that can cause some losses. I am about halfway through the 320 turn, and a series of cascading events and failures have happened that I had to stop and show you what was going on. So over here on the left, we are going to be successfully able to relieve Wilkie's brigade coming up this way. As you can see, the English have kind of invested the town, and the French don't really have anywhere to go. We're locked into firefights all along the front, so it's going to slow down the advance, but I'm hoping this fresh brigade coming up from the rear will be able to sweep in this direction. Not a lot left over here. The French have 5 brigades left. A bunch of them have basically 1 hit till they break. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do. The firefights lock the units, and they just don't do anything until they're supported or changed to dress ranks, and I don't really want to change to dress ranks to give these guys the ability to recover. So that's what's going on over here. The Allies feel like their best chance to win is in this sector. Now, we then came over here to the middle, and a bunch of things happened. We had an attack. So Palant was trying to get to dress ranks to pull back. They failed. They were in charge, so they had to charge. They had to attack. They attacked a line of cavalry in these 4 hexes. One of Palant's brigades still had his initial volley. That volley spooked everyone. It caused the unit to rout. That brigade did a morale check. They routed. Because they were locked in here, there was a stack in this hex, and when the attack was made, the cavalry could not retreat because of their stack. The cavalry failed its retreat, could not retreat roll. That caused it to rout. That caused its brigade to rout. So we've got 2 brigades who have routed in the face of this infantry advance, and they have all fallen back here. And now the French rear is going to be in absolute chaos as they try and get out of the way of these fleeing troops. Actually, we've seen that Tressesson here, his infantry brigade is already trying to clear the way, but Bligny is also going to have to move and get out of the way, otherwise they're going to take hits, and the French really can't afford that right now. So what was looking like a pretty slowing Allied advance here, looks like it felt like the momentum had kind of run out. Suddenly, a giant hole has opened right down the middle of the French line and has left them with only 3 brigades in the front in that sector, in that wing, and all of them are in dress ranks. So there's not going to be very much ability to respond unless they can get out of dress ranks into other orders. And like I said, the French leadership is quite terrible. Over here, the French have had way more luck. The Allied cavalry under Eugen has just not been able to come to grips with the French cavalry, and a series of charges and attacks in here have sent more Allied cavalry brigades fleeing into the rear. It's very problematic for the Allies, because if we look at their brigade display, they've only got one cavalry brigade in front who's stuck in charge. I couldn't get him out of it. He's missing 2 of his units, so he's very likely to fail a morale check if he loses another one. We've got 2 units in support, both of which are sort of badly out of position because they're being charged around the flanks, and so they're badly out of position. And these 2 cavalry brigades in the rear don't really have much room to back up or get out of the way, and I really have been trying to commit them to the front. And even though Eugen is quite a good leader, I have failed 4 or 5 turns in a row to move any of these brigades around, with the exception of Ostange or Kusani coming up into the front. So it's really bad. The Allies are having real command problems over here, despite having quite a good leader. So I don't know how that's going to shake out. I think it's kind of a race at this point, because there's a risk that the French could win the battle in this wing, and there's a chance that the Allies could win the battle in one of these 2 wings as we go along. And then finally we come over here to the left. The French have reformed. They're in the process of swapping brigades to the front here. These dragoons are pulling back. These French infantry are moving forward. The only thing holding it are the Danes. We are locked into firefights all around Lutzingen, and that just basically halts the Allied advance. So at this, and the French, obviously, you can't do anything there, but they didn't want to move anyway. So at this point, the French have successfully neutralized the right flank of the Allies, and if they can take out the Danes, which is going to be tough because the Danes have their depth, they have extra depth, but and they're in the woods. But if the French can somehow swing through here, push the Danes back, and envelop this sector, then the French could also win by eliminating the Allied right. So I've been trying to use my leaders to commit brigades over to the far right. The problem is that Eugen's got his hands full with the French cavalry, and he can't spare the actions. So what I think I might do is move Marlborough over the next couple turns from the left, where it's under control, and move him across the battlefield on the brigade display to get him over in this area to use his command value to try and support this slowly collapsing wing. Looking at the Lutzingen-Oberglau Gap sector here, I just decided finally, you know what, I'm going to send Prince Eugen in to lead a cavalry charge. I mean, he's what he was known for, right? So we did it. We got Bibra up into the front via command change. We finally managed to make it into charge, and Eugen plowed through the field. You may remember there was a cavalry brigade here, a very good Bavarian cavalry brigade here. That would be all these guys. He eliminated the first one, which caused a route marker to be placed. That routed a unit behind him, so he fled. And then he got 2 follow-up attacks, and each of those attacks resulted in an elimination. Von Weichel's horrible, terrible terrorist Bavarian cavalry that's been just wrecking me was just annihilated to a man by Prince Eugen personally leading a cavalry charge. Now we have to see if Prince Eugen dies in the attempt. And he does not. So that was a great turnaround here in this sector that has swept the Bavarians from the field. Now, the French have been reinforcing this wing, but they're not in good position. These guys are just isolated out in front. They're going to probably come under charge from these dragoons next turn, and it is starting to turn around. All right, it's 5 p.m. here on the day of the Battle of Blenheim, and the French have kind of stiffened up a little bit. Definitely can feel the running out of attack power from the Allies, and so I'm having to do things like put Marlborough in direct command of brigades in order to find some advantage. Now, the danger to that is obviously he might get killed in combat, or if the brigade routes, then he might rout with them. But at this point, there's really no choice but to have my leadership advantage be put to the test in key locations. There's a couple wings with only a few brigades left. There's only 5 in this right wing. This one, the historical victory wing where the French were routed, still has a lot. Going to be difficult to punch through that. And then over on the left, we've got 4 brigades left for the French. So the game is going to be won or lost at this point with only 4 turns remaining. 4 or 5 turns remaining on the flanks. And because it takes so long to get units in position, and you have to get lucky with your die rolls, again, leveraging your commands, it just means that your command has to be focused into what you want to accomplish this turn or next turn, and so it's tough decisions. But it's going to either be won on the flanks, and here we had a couple A couple more French brigades route. We've recovered the Danes here. We've got Rantzau coming up. I'm going to try and get all of these guys in the front line. Just commit everything I've got over here for one last push against Lutzingen, and hopefully break up a bunch of these brigades. These guys are pretty weak. These guys, if they lose another unit, might break. The Danes are double depth in here, so they can take the casualties. We did launch another cavalry charge with Eugen here that had pretty great effects, routed a brigade, small one. So we're going to try it again because the formation still has some power. Actually, I'm going to try it with this one. The problem is this stream, you can't really charge across it. You don't get the charge bonus for distance. So, but having Eugen should make up for that. And I'm trying really hard to get the Webb's fresh British infantry in here, especially if I can slot them in between these cavalry and these Dutch right here. And if I can have them go first, are they in charge? They're not in charge. Just trying to see if maybe I could route some of these brigades in here, but it's going to be tricky. It might take a couple turns. So as you can see, the line loosening up quite a bit, not as much depth as there was at the beginning of this battle. And right now it's now down to how the management of brigades unfolds. Here are all the casualties. French and Bavarian brigades, less so on the Allied side, but a lot of their power has been diminished because of these fights, especially in the cities and whatnot. 2 turns to go in the game. We are starting the 6 p.m. turn, and I think the French are going to wind up gutting it out and winning this battle. I just don't think there's enough time left for the Allies and the various unit states that they are in to be able to push through and break through a wing somewhere. I've been trying over the last couple turns, and it's been tough. I've not been getting the right dice rolling. I've gotten a lot of firefight results, which could absolutely just grind everything to a halt when you get firefight results. It feels bad to get a firefight result when you have really good odds or better odds than normal, and then you know that you're stuck there until someone comes along and frees you, or you change to dress ranks so you can retreat to then the following turn change to march, then on the following turn change to charge again. So it takes usually a whole hour to clean up the firefight mess, and when you get a lot of those in a row, it can really bring everything just crashing down. So we do have Marlborough over here on the left flank. I think if I'm going to win anywhere, it's probably going to be there. Still 4 brigades, so I've got to start routing some folks. I have a good shot. We've got Ferguson here, who's finally freed up and taken Blenheim, and we've got they're going to be able to attack Montfort and Balincourt this turn, which is good. Hopefully we can rout them. We've got fresh battalions under St. Paul's Brigade who still have their first fire, which they can definitely rout that guy if they get to go. First, they won't be able to, unfortunately. They're going to be the last units to go in this sector. And we've got Wilkie over here who is in charge, but they're attacking across this creek, so they may rout before Enonville does. So what we really, really want to do probably is send Marlborough. I think we probably want to send Marlborough to St. Paul to make sure that we can go into charge this turn. I think we attack with Wilkie first. If we rout, that's okay. Then have St. Paul follow up with an attack, and I think Ferguson should be able to take out both of these positions. Let me just look here. This will be a 3 to 4 attack. Yeah, it's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. The Allies never did manage to break through the center. We did get Webb up into the front line finally, but he has spent the last 40 minutes unable to get into charge. His command structure breaking down. And the same is true of Urbach here. We've been in dress ranks for about an hour, unable to get them to charge here against Lorraine, which now is not going to happen because Broy's infantry have moved up. So we need Webb to go first. So that's problematic. And then, we did push the French back in the cavalry wing, but they are just unable to. There's just too many French cavalry here for them to grind through in order to win this wing. And then this wing, we had a possibility at one point to be able to win the game over here, and it has all gone sideways. We got a lot of firefight results along the front of Lutzingen near this creek, probably the most defensible terrain on the map, honestly. I probably should not have attacked there, but even then, haven't been able to come to grips with the French in these woods, and yeah, it's just been a really slow, kind of confusing morass over here. So everything looking a little sloppy. The neat lines we saw at the beginning of the game, no longer there, and we're just going to try and make as much hay as we possibly can, hopefully here be able to bring a victory home on the final turn. So Marlborough is going to have to lead it himself, and hopefully he doesn't die. All right, well, we come to the end of the Battle of Blenheim. It is the end of the 6:40 p.m. turn, and this is the final state of things. It is a French victory, but only just barely. Allies blew open a hole right through the French center here, but we're just unable to take advantage. We've got Tressisson, his brigade down here, came under attack by Palant on the final turn and managed to repulse them and rout them. That's what you see here. I've actually got to do a bunch of route movement. Hold on, let me do that real quick. All right, there we go. Actually, this should come off too. There's the final state of things, just a giant mess, and the Allies vastly outnumbering what's left of the French. Here's the brigade display. It was such a close thing. There's actually only one brigade left over here on the Blenheim side of the table, and that's Montreux right here. We just didn't have enough movement points to close on him and attack him this turn, which is it's a heartbreak, really. Yeah, this is all the way down the line. The Allies blowing a hole here. Like I said, the Oberglau strong point here is a pretty tough one to crack. We had some combats across the line with Webb near the end there, just because of the way that you're forced to attack priority hexes. Cavalry here, still a bunch of cavalry here. Nothing really left for the French. They only had 2 brigades left, and one of which was Wolframdorf had taken serious losses. Conflans here is only 2 battalions. So if on the final turn, I was trying to get Eugen to charge here, and what I was hoping for was to wipe out one of these, get an advance. 1, 2, attack them and eliminate them and hopefully out them. There was a chance here if Eugen could have got his roll, but he failed the roll. Again, that was really the story of the game, is Eugen failing his cavalry order change rolls here. And then we just didn't get the rolls we needed on this side of the battlefield as well. We pounded Lutzingen with artillery for turn after turn, and I just couldn't get the Danes into a charge order. And the French reinforced it anyways. Ishigin came over from the Oberglau strong point and came down here over the course of an hour and a half or so, and reinforced. It was going to be difficult to win here at the end. But yeah, it's when I look at the final state of the battle, it is technically by the rules of French victory. But when I look at the casualty disparity between the number of brigades lost on each side here, 10 brigades lost for the Allies and just so many for the Franco-Bavarians here, I just have to wonder if there wasn't a better way to assess victory by routing a wing. I mean, there's no reason Marlborough would stop the fight at this point, because he is going to absolutely thrash this brigade here in Blenheim, and he's absolutely at some point going to thrash the French cavalry here. So the fact that the only victory is routing a wing of all of its brigades seems a little suspect given the end state that we have here. Would it have been better to have an instant victory if you rout a wing, but you look at casualties at the end of the battle potentially, or number of brigades left in the wings total? I mean, the Allies have so many more brigades even just available to fight still. So I don't know if I would call this a French victory. Certainly 20 more minutes, and I think I could have put the nail in the coffin for the French. So we'll call it a draw, or maybe a French asterisk victory, but that's the end of the game. I have a lot of thoughts about this game. I think some of those thoughts are going to be unexpected, and I want to save them for their own video, because there's a lot to talk about here based on this play of Blenheim that I feel deserve more than the rest of this video can give it. So I am going to wrap this here. I hope you enjoyed this playthrough of Banish All Their Fears, the Battle of Blenheim. I'm going to put this away. Well, I'll leave it on the table, because when I do the final wrap-up and final thoughts video, first impressions of the system, I want to talk about some of the stuff that's on the table here. So yeah, thanks for watching this. I hope there hasn't really been anyone who's done like a detailed video on the gameplay of this game. I know Callendale did some playthroughs, so maybe him. But yeah, this is what Blenheim looks like after I played it, and hopefully you got a sense of the mechanics involved here. So I will see you very shortly for my sort of first impressions, initial impressions / quote-unquote review. I don't think it's really fair to review the game because I haven't played Nervinden, and I've only played it one time, but certainly my initial reaction to the system, having spent many hours playing through this scenario. So yeah, I'll see you then. And then the other thing I'm going to do quickly, I'll mention I am going to do a comparison side-by-side of this game with Blenheim 1704 from Legion War games, because I think there's a lot of overlap and similarities with what those games are trying to achieve, but how they go about doing it is completely different, and I think that's worth an interesting analysis. And then I'm also going to go back and revisit my games from the 18th century video that I did, and we're going to look at Blenheim, its closest competitors, or close games that are in the same era that are trying, tactical games about this period, and sort of judge it by the three criteria we set out in that video, which, if I recall correctly, is the linear warfare and fire doctrine, use of cavalry, and something else that I can't remember. But we're going to look at this game through that lens as well, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a compare and contrast with some of the other systems out there that cover the 18th century, especially the War of Spanish Succession. So thanks for watching.